Hitting that standing speed bag doesn't look like much of a challenge, nor does it really appear impressive. And it's not like hitting the heavy bag. That's a totally different story on its own. This works different areas of your brain and the different twitch muscles that are found in the same group of muscles used for the heavy bag, but called upon specifically when you execute the proper motions to hit the speed bag like you feel it when it's responding correctly. That's a totally different set of ligaments and tissues and cells, etc. But anyway, the point I'm getting at is that I've been out of training due to illness for over a year and a half, and the past 2 months I've been picking up slowly, and I can feel the wear and tear that this standing speed bag, serving as the object you hit, while performing the motions involved that seem simple and basic and not fancy, really put a tax and a demand on your performance and your movements, enough to trigger the enormous amount of oxygen it needs to do such a simple act. And it increases your body heat tremendously. When the lack of oxygen that your body is trying to compensate for because of it's being used up to burn fuel hits, you'll feel it. When the heat rises, it's like another burden on top of it. You find yourself, if not physically expressing it, and you can't help yourself but express it, internally you're agonizing as you're performing a simple, moderately fast, proportional to the returning bag. You find yourself experiencing an excruciating discomfort. Imagine a year and a half. Let me reduce that by 2 months or maybe a few weeks more of doing nothing, cold turkey, of all other activities. Your body will relapse into a close proximity near the physical conditioning you were in before you started years ago. And I'm referring to whatever high performance limits you had will suddenly drop to like you had none at the start, no matter how long it took you to build up to that point. It is dangerous and proven already to me. I'm not going to use the fun word. A bad decision, a bad call. Sometimes you can't help it. Well, in my case, I had no choice, so I have to. And then my medical doctors encourage and they even verbally prescribe that I increase my exercises, even if it's the only thing I can do, even if it's all I have left, without getting into detail about my medical condition, because it's not what I am specifically targeting as the subject itself, so it would be irrelevant. But you gotta touch it from a general distance without the details so that we stay on track and realize that the description Rivera is giving is being described in general terms to include other reasons and other medical conditions that fall under the same general principle. When you get back into training, you have to enter it slowly, even if it's the only thing you can do. For instance, I haven't recorded yet and showed my comedic, laughable presentation, like I do here sometimes, especially when we forget to turn the recorder off. I haven't included the same punching techniques from a sitting position. It's like doing the sitting yoga that others are out there selling and practicing. Well, I'm doing also the sitting shadow boxing, where the only part of your torso coming into play is from the waist up, and all the necessary skeletal parts and muscles that help you execute the movement in synchrony with the twisting at your vertebra and not necessarily at the pelvis like when you're standing. You know? And it's just as demanding oxygen wise and heat wise. If you are out for a long period of time, not exercising, those are the best approaches to take. You sort of like divide your body parts and then work on them within that proportional frame you've identified you only want to work. Okay? Sometimes I'll make fun of myself, sometimes I'll act the clown, sometimes I'll act the comedian. But throughout the entire time that I might even make a fool out of myself hitting that speed bag, I am really feeling the demand of the exercise. It's not like handling heavy weights, okay? Your fast twitch muscles use more oxygen. No, let me put it this way. Yes, they do use more oxygen for the duration of the time you work them. But if you cut off a section of that time and you look at it, you're saying, wow, shorter movements executed with minimal oxygen. And then the duration of the over and over repetitious act adds up to an enormous amount of, let's use the metaphor, the body's crying out for oxygen and for coolness, because the heat that is generated from the production of fuel and burning of fuel will leave you looking pale. Not to mention, if you have a New York City tan, you're going to look as ugly as I do. So, this is not all exercises, like what I'm about to say, this is not a Superman assertion. No, this is just ordinary people who either are sick or not sick, and they train their body to do what the body was designed to do. And if it seems impressive when we get to that point, it's only to those who have not even cared or bothered to engage in the same practice to bring their physical fitness and bodily activity to where it needs to be. Of course, there's lots of reasons to not want to exercise. I mean, we usually think that going to work is all the exercise we need, but on the contrary, the amount of stress that is built up from negative electrical impulses arriving, telling your brain what the environment has around you, will fill you with more drain than you are commanding your brain to activate into activity, fuel producing responses. So there's like no physical benefit from it. You just come home all stressed out and drained. In either case, physical fitness or coming home from work drained, you are in a state of deprivation. You have been sucked up. Your energy has been used up with no immediate supply. Knowing that that's the case in either one, then you choose the one that will have that activity connected to it, or you connect that activity to it to say, hey brain, I am demanding that you do what you got to do to cause my body to stimulate and activate the intricacies of qualities and quantities, components and factors, elements, nutritions, vitamins, etc., to produce the energy I need that will trigger repair and even repair the stress and the damage of the stress that you pick up from going to work and collecting all that garbage that enters your brain. Looking at the psychological aspect of it, your brain probably uses about 90% of the oxygen that's entering your system through your nostrils and into your lungs. So, when you're affected by that stress, you may feel euphoric or happy or temporarily joyful, but your interaction with other people is dysfunctional and sick, and the tendency is, for other reasons that I don't want to get into, you pass it on to the people near you. The next thing you know, you're fighting with your family members. You are the advocate and the messenger to so much negativity that you indirectly, as a byproduct, like secondhand smoke, passing on the toxins to the person that comes in contact with you. And there is no way, once you enter that state of mind, that you're going to be convinced that you're the one that needs help. And if your mind gets to that point where you're the one that doesn't realize you need help, that inactivity you have like surrendered your freedom to choose to do otherwise, subjects you to it, and you find yourself becoming more lazier as far as your physical fitness is concerned to do something about it. And it reaches a point where you really are not where you need to be physically nor fitness wise. So if you see me struggling with my occasional smile or in between the spaces of my smiles and kidding around, it's because I've been active for about a year and a half, and I am feeling it. But I am not going to let the reigniting the activity stop just because I feel the what you call it, the drain and the wear and the asphyxiation and the heat and the tiredness and the frustration, because the portions of your brain that respond to the demand placed upon it have to be retrained again to send out the signals fast enough to supply you the already stored unused energy in the form in which your body stores it. So I trust I am not boring you with all this, because right now I look at myself on the screen and I am boring myself to death. That's how lazy and how much relapse I have accumulated throughout that year. The thing is that there's that part of me that has become second nature, that is pushing through all that I buried it with, all the laziness that has accumulated on top of it. And then I have close friends, and when I say close friends, it also means cousins, a neighbor or two, participating in the training, and that encourages me, knowing that I have an outside source to tap into, and it keeps me from becoming what the principle of entropy describes. Any activity placed in an enclosure, and that's what happens to you. You lock yourself up in your room, placed in an enclosure, sealed off from external energy sources, begins to slowly experience what entropy is all about. It begins to use up the energy it has itself until there's nothing left. So the idea is to, as a human being with a thinking brain, reason to keep yourself from going that far. Don't become a victim of entropy, also known in physics as inertia, And in common terminology, lazy. And in even more common terminology, a couch potato. There are ways to physically get fit, even a couch potato. Get yourself an ab toner. Get yourself those little components that electrically stimulate your muscles. It doesn't take much to stick them on there like a snot or a band-aid. It'll do the work for you. All you got to do is sit there and relax and not look for excuses to say it's too much work even putting that on, because your brain will trick you into thinking that's too much work, you know. So when I go to sleep or when I'm just laying around not hitting that punching bag, I have my ab toner. This is not a commercial for ab toners. I'm just identifying that for every problem we have, there is an equal standard to remedy it. And we have to get up off our ass and go looking for it. Because once we find it, in some cases, you discover that it'll do it for you. You can't get any better than that. That's for the lazy person. And when I feel lazy, that's what I do. But when I notice that I have to engage in activity, I use my wonderful standing speed bag. And then the part about the blindfold, you won't look as dramatic and as long ranged as looking at the standing speed bag, because you can follow it and hit it wherever it goes. Unlike that, the blindfold practice of hitting the standing speed bag, you have to teach yourself to punch straight no matter how close or how far, or the varying movements that take place in your arm. There's no set standard. Anytime you set a standard, you remove it from its freedom to respond flexibly. That should be the standard. The idea is with the blindfold, you learn to punch straight. Once your brain has learned to recognize this is the alignment for it, you start increasing the intensity slowly as you hit it. And it goes out further. And it comes back straight because you programmed it from the start of the impact into a straight trajectory and a returning one, meeting the straight impact again. Now, once you reach that point where the amount of misses and misalignments from the straight programming are minimal, you can enter a different phase. Your brain begins to compensate, and it's already been documented. Your brain, second nature, is able to hit it even when it's off the straight line by directing the motions of your arm to it, causing it to return back into the straight line return. And you can again resume the straight line punching. And every time it goes off, your brain has been designed to detect subtle cues that will tell you it's going offline upon the return. And then you will find that it actually governs your motions to meet it there in order to re-engage it back into the straight line return. If you understand physics and quantum physics, you won't have any problem comprehending what I'm saying. The human brain is far more impressive and unknown than the mystical jargon that has come into the scene as part of the brain information. It's colorful, but the science of today and the scientists of today have documented that fact. Your thoughts do go flying out into space. Your brain operates under electrical chemical impulses. And just like electricity through a wire, your thoughts course through your brain, and as they course through the neural network in there, like a wire with electricity flowing through it, it has a field of radiation. So, as it travels through its assigned course of trajectory, it does emanate bits and pieces of sparks of your thoughts. Now, to the mind that isn't fully familiar with the quantum physics and the scientific discoveries in neuroscience, all this stuff sounds like crazy baloney. Stop and think for a minute. In America, the most favorite food is bologna, and every American does nothing but eat bologna and speak bologna and do bologna all day long. It's what runs this world. That's a metaphor for what I'm trying to tell you. That it indicates that I know there are people that have difficulty comprehending the higher sciences. But when you deal with physics and when you deal with neuroscience or the mindscape, the way the human brain was designed to think, you discover that the reason why we can perform the things we do is because of those very things being described that originate from the human brain anyway. So it's not like we're getting it from somewhere else, from outer space, from an alien or a Martian or the devil or God only. Of course, he's the source of all things, but this is not a topic about God. It's arising from the human brain itself. Our designer put all that information in there, in the DNA and chromosomes we have. We have so many DNAs and chromosomes in our system that only a small number of them are activated, allowing us to be who we are, whoever you are. The other ones are a cause of interest because they remain unknown due to the fact that they are not activated. And there's a gene, a chromosome, information even deeper that applies specifically to everything we experience and everything that happens to us. My point is that if we sit around being lazy all day long, looking for excuses to be lazy instead of being active, we reach a point where we have to wake up and find out and realize that we have to do something about it. Those of us that don't expect the medical doctor to perform a miracle, and then we get pissed off because the world can't help us and we end up being hopeless. But why wait till we get that far? Okay, I've gone a little bit further than what I was trying to say originally, but it at least awakens my mind a little bit here as well. Because when I speak to you, everything I tell you I hear before you do. Okay? So the effects of what I'm saying doesn't just land on you, it hits me first, so I have to be true to that. I have to be true to myself. I have to care for myself enough that I have a fighting chance when medical problems hit. At my age 57, it's a little more difficult to regain what I had earlier than a younger person. But that doesn't mean that I can't do it, because it's never too late to improve. And I'm on that road again. It's a little more it's far more complicated than what I just now said, because I've left a lot of unnecessary detail out. I sort of even had a little problem totally accepting what I was saying that was extra information, but it's sort of like just enough helps me get the main point across. And hopefully I haven't thrown you off course as I spoke it. So I think I'm going to conclude this now and resume my training. You have a good day.